It's now 5 months since I created my first video on my perspective of the pandemic here in China. Things have moved on. Things have changed. The world is engulfed by Omicron. While it's 5 times more infectious, thankfully it's not quite as deadly. Still dangerous, but with fewer percentage fatalities. It wasn't long before we'd heard about it. The first signs in South Africa were early November, and the first cases here were in Hong Kong mid-November. One of the first cases outside South Africa, and Hong Kong quickly experienced the transmissibility within days. A second infection was found in quarantine hotel. No contact with a prior infection. Patients never left their rooms, just doors open for food. It came through the air across the hallway. Thankfully, it was found in someone in quarantine. Everyone arriving here goes into quarantine. It's now increased to 4 weeks if you include isolation at home. That's all after new arrivals would have had to show negative PCR tests before they actually departed, and often with the requirement for double vaccination. And another case was found after 14 days in forced quarantine mid-December, as the patient started this subsequent isolation at home. Note that multiple tests during the quarantine showed negative results. Only an early test in isolation did one turn negative. I hear of countries reducing quarantine times to 7 or maybe even 5 days. Viruses do not work to strict timetables. While 7 days might result in a negative test for most people, the reality is that infection times vary like a normal distribution curve. A cut-off day of 7 days may encompass most people, but the curve goes on and a few people get infected much later on. A recent study in Japan showed the possibility of a very long incubation time and time to show the latest variant. With Omicron, it just takes one and a whole community might be scuppered. So what's going to happen here? The recent well-publicized outbreak in Xi'an was the biggest outbreak since spring 2020. But for the last week, there have been no reports of further cases. But that was Delta and proved amenable to lockdowns, mass testing, multiple testing, mask wearing, cancellation of flights in and out, etc., etc. A multi-pronged, proactive response. I remember the professor of public health at Edinburgh University suggesting something similar way back on the 26th of January 2020, and time showed that she was totally ignored. Quote, "Too much fear of overreaction. Better to react and prevent something than to wait and have it to treat it later. A core tenet of public health. Being blamed later for overreacting comes with the territory." That was from Professor Devi Sridhar. But how will China respond? Many specialists state that because Omicron is so transmissible and now BA.2 is twice more infectious, it's in fact unstoppable. We've heard them state that everyone will be exposed to it. Only time will tell, but so far it's been slowed down here. In the UK, right now it accounts for more than 96% of all current COVID-19 infections. Here, there are single figure numbers in a couple of spots. But that's because of China's zero tolerance approach, which most Western nations scoff at. Yesterday, the number of new, mainly Delta cases was 63, including 25 local cases, in a population of 1.4 billion. Measure that, if you will, against the UK, with a population of 68 million, and yet with 102,292 cases yesterday. Now that's a similar number to the total number of infections over 2 years here in China. Sure, I know nobody believes Chinese statistics, but as an anecdote, life in China since 2020 April, it's been pretty normal. Remember that? And the economy has grown. Remember that? And they take drastic multiple measures if there's even a hint of a new case. Here in Changsha, my city, the first new case since July 2021 was discovered in a new arrival on the 18th of October. Within a few days, the whole of the city was tested. All 10 million of us. We had ours done on the 25th of October. No more cases. They're following the Swiss cheese model of mitigating strategies. Remember seeing this? Lots and lots of different criteria to slow things down, from personal to public responses. And I've added vitamin D as well. It's essential to slow it down. Back in spring 2020, it was largely confined to Wuhan. Because of that, medical staff, etc., could be drafted in from elsewhere to cope with the emergency. In the UK, it's everywhere, and there's no virus-free reservoir of medical help to draw on, maybe apart from the army medics, providing they don't get infected. But there's no case for lacking caution or pretending that it cannot happen here. Several countries, especially in the Far East, had done very well and hardly had any infections or fatalities until now they too have been devastated. It can happen here too, especially with BA.2. In the meantime, we've stocked up with KN95 masks. They're 5 times more effective than surgical masks. Check out the CDC assessment chart if you don't believe me. We've also installed an air purifier. We've got jabbed up. Unfortunately, my mother-in-law has a heart condition and has been denied the vaccine. And the rest of us have been boosted. But I'm due mine in the next week or so. And we're taking vitamin D3, having had our blood vitamin D levels checked in the summer. And in the meantime, we pray for the rest of the world, especially that the rich nations will help the poorer ones to get sufficient vaccinations at an affordable price. Mutations will happen all the time with viruses, so we need to protect everyone, not just the wealthy ones. No one is safe until we are all safe.